It's time here at my house.
Yeah, they can't hear me.
Yes, it's time here too. It's 8 o'clock.
Oh, good. Okay. All right, then I'd like to call the meeting to order. So we have a special meeting of the Board of Education. If everyone could please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have our consensus agenda this morning. So item 3.1 is a request to approve the consensus agenda items 3.2 through 3.3.8.1.
So move, Dave.
Second, Jane.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Motion passes. Moving on to new business, number 4. Motion or item number 4.1 is a motion to approve the request from the Iroquois Middle School Principal Ross Esslinger to render certain French books and materials obsolete and properly dispose of said items.
So move, Dave.
Second, Jane.
Any discussion? All those that in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 4.2 is a motion to approve the extension of the Type 2 Food Service Management Agreement with the Personal Touch Food Service 2020 through 2021 school year in accordance with the contract bid specifications at an increase of 1.4% per May's CPI.
So move, Dave.
Second, Michelle.
Discussion.
I would just like to thank Personal Touch for providing all the food over the summer and even during the last spring, during this COVID time, to all the families. I know a lot of their workers, came in, went the extra mile to make sure this was available to all of the children in our district. So thank you to them.
Job well done.
Doug, before we get into the new school year, could you remind our building administrators to put out communications to families who may have a change in their economic situation that may be able to apply for free and reduced lunch?
Definitely, we'll get that out to all the families because for free and reduced lunch, just economically, situations might change. And John is currently working with Personal Touch of how, because we have, the split 50-50, how individuals could come and pick up lunches for the days that they're not in school for the free and reduced.
So you're saying this contract is extended, so it's not going out to bid, or?
Oh, it's a 5-year contract, I believe we have with them.
Correct. We put it out to bid every 5 years. We're required to put it out to bid, and then once you establish that bid, you are allowed to do extensions for 4 years after that. So that's what we do here, an extension.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm
Motion
opposed.
carries. 4.3, a motion to accept the proposal.
Oh, wait a
for the
second.
ref-
Just a minute. Cindy has a question, please.
Okay.
I'm opposed.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
4.3, motion to accept the proposal for the refuse removal contract with Waste Management of New York, LLC of Rochester, New York through June 30th, 2021 at an approximate cost of $35,000.
So move, Dave.
Second, Jane.
Discussion.
Yeah, Doug, why such a large increase? I mean, that's almost, that's over a 15% increase in that.
I'll let John answer that one, but I think it's because we did not use them a majority in the spring, but go ahead, John.
Right. I took the actual expense for the previous year, which was lower because we didn't have students in the building for 3 months or so. So that's why last year looked artificially a little lower than usual.
Oh, Any other discussion?
And I also think it's good to point out that that's why it says approximate cost, because with students being here 50% of the time, this might actually end up being a much lower, I shouldn't say much, but end up being a lower number, because obviously half of the students will be producing half of the refuge.
So we're actually billed at, you know, the amount of, waste that we generate, and the contract is a cap? Or does the contract establish, you know, what we pay by weight?
Right, it's by weight, so it's only, you're only getting billed if you actually have pickups being made at the building. Is that answer your question?
Well, I'm wondering then why, you know, why we have a $35,000 number there if we're being, you know, billed by pickup.
It's the estimate based on our last couple of years of, maybe 3 years of, our average is around the mid-30s. It varies quite a bit every year based on actual garbage pickups that occur. So it's a really rough estimate. We don't, you know, we get billed for actual pickups only.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay,
What we can do is we can do maybe an estimate and do a little bit more of a breakdown in some type of report, so you can see the weight that we're doing, just so you have more information on that one.
Okay, thank you.
anybody else? Stop me if somebody in the room wants to discuss it. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Motion 4.4 is a motion to accept the following donations. $100 from Mr. and Mrs. Rodney J. Willis Jr. for Danny's Helping Hands, and $1,000 from Scholarship America to be used for scholarships in the high school.
So moved, Gunner.
Second, Jane.
Chuck.
Discussion. I think as always, we like the donation. We thank you so much for donations.
Well, and especially with Helping Hands at this time because of the different people in need, so it's just great to see that people who have some are sharing with people that are, you know, unfortunately facing hard economic times or you know, personal strife, I'll say, you know, with all of the environments going on in the world.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? 4.5, a motion to declare the following items obsolete and disposed of according to district policy. Single disc scrubber, which is unrepairable, and a Jacobson mower and broom, which is unrepairable.
So moved, Dave.
Second, Chuck.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Item 4.6, a motion to terminate the student activity account for the middle school French club. The club has not had financial activity for a 2-year period and all funds have been depleted.
So moved, Dave.
Second, Louise.
And discussion? I think it's important to point out that we have a multitude of clubs here, and not all of them have financial accounts. So with the way the French Club is right now, the way they're holding their activities, they're not raising money, so they don't need a financial account. So it's not that the club is disappearing or that we would not have the club if people were interested. It's just the activities they're doing, they're not doing car washes, so they don't need a financial account, and they haven't done it for 2 years, so therefore, not getting rid of the club, just closing the bank account.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, item 4.7 is a motion to approve the revenue changes assessment and tax rate for the 2020-21 school year.
So moved, Chuck.
Second, Dave.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item 4.8, a motion to approve the following resolution. Whereas the Iroquois Central School District and its Board of Education propose to undertake a 2020 capital improvement project at the district's campuses and facilities, and whereas the district's board identified the relevant areas of environmental concern, took a hard look at these areas and made a reasoned elaboration of the basis for its determination, now therefore be it resolved by the Iroquois Central School District Board of Education that the district/board is the lead agency under the SECRA and the 2020 capital improvement project, which will not result in a significant adverse impact on the environment. This resolution is effective immediately.
So moved, Chuck.
Second, Jane.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item 4.9, a motion to approve the following resolution. That the board wishes to propose a capital improvements project involving the reconstruction and renovation of, and the construction of improvements and upgrades to various district buildings and facilities and the sites thereof. All is described in greater detail in proposition number 1 in the legal notice set forth below, collectively the project. And as part of that process, pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, or SECRA, an environmental assessment form has been completed for the project, which is a Type 1 action under SECRA. A thorough review of the project's potential environmental impacts has been undertaken. It has been found that the project will not result in an significant adverse impact on the environment, and a written, reasoned elaboration of the SECRA determination of significance has been provided in a negative declaration. That a special meeting and a vote of the qualified voters of the district will be held in the gymnasium at the Iroquois Central Intermediate Middle School at 2111 Girdle Road, Alma, New York, on Tuesday, October 6, 2020, at 7:30 a.m. prevailing time for the purpose of voting upon the proposition hereinafter set forth. Resolved that the project, including the Solar Liberty component and the Smart Schools Bond Act component, shall be undertaken at an estimated maximum cost of $19,189,249 to implement various health, safety, accessibility, and code compliance measures that are required by the State Education Department in connection with any significant capital improvement project, and various other measures that are generally described in, but are not limited by, the written plan for the project that was prepared by the district with the assistance of Gordon W. Jones Associates, Architects PC, the project plan, which is available for the public inspection at the office of the district clerk. And be it further resolved that the board is hereby authorized to expend or apply towards the project during the current fiscal year of the district $4,270,942 from the district's General Capital Reserve Fund that was established in 2011. And be it further resolved that the board is hereby authorized to expend or apply toward the project $1,950,307 of other available funds of the district. And be it further resolved that a tax is hereby voted to finance the balance of the estimated maximum cost of the project in an amount not to exceed $12,968,000. Such tax to be levied and collected in installments in such years and in such amounts as shall be determined by the board. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately.
So moved, Chuck.
Second, Dave.
Discussion.
So we sent out to the board, and I'm going to get technology, Matt and Mike too, and thank you for taking care of technology today, you two. Just to pull up on the screen here the presentation we put together. And I also have campus here, so from campus I have Nick, Allison, John, and Tracy. And then I have Tim from Gordon Jones, just to point out how we're looking to advertise this, get the PR out, so everyone's aware of this. So there'll be a slide of that in the quick presentation. And plus, we're going to put this up on the website, so then people want a general overview now, they kind of know, or they definitely know where we're headed. So when you look at capital improvements, you go to the second slide, that's just a summary of what we're going to be talking about. And after this summary, I am going to add another slide, I was thinking about it the other day, that has the 5 main areas, and I'm going to confirm with campus on this so it matches what we're going to be doing in PR, but really about health and safety, mandatory code requirements, site reconstruction, building reconstruction, and most importantly, district educational programs. So everyone know these are the areas that we're going to be addressing. And then, if we go to the next slide, you'll see in the high school, there we go. In the next slide, you'll see in the high school what we're doing there, where we're doing safety with the blue lights and the PA system. We're providing some comfort for students in the air conditioning in the cafeteria, and it's really more than comfort because the way springs are now, they really need a break from the heat. And then we're going to get into the STEM. The STEM and the science classrooms really need to be done. That is a priority in talking to the principal there. And then the other one is a mandatory, is a site reconstruction or just something we need to do for safety with the wastewater treatment. And by no means this is a complete presentation of what we're doing, because that's what we'll be talking about in a little bit. Middle school, we'll basically be doing the same things for safety, but they're also going to have some focus on the STEM and science rooms, and then there's some health with the restrooms, and then for efficiency and also cost savings and environmental, being good stewards and examples to this everyone with the solar panels, and then there's some roofs that need to be done, which is another health issue. Alma, there's the safety, and then also another safety one with the parking lot, expanding that, and then, and both of these in the middle school before I had the air conditioning. And we look at Morel, they're really going to have some site reconstruction there for safety of the entranceways, the air conditioning again, safety with the cafeteria, making a better firewall in there, and then they're going to have the solar panels too. Then we go on to Wales, which is basically the same as the other primaries. The next slide would then be the athletic field, because really with that, the end of life with the track, and then the different concerns with the safety for the bleachers that we've had in the building condition survey for the past, multiple surveys, that needs to be addressed. And then really we're going to get into the next piece, which is the part where I have everyone here for, is the presentation. How are we going to have this presentation of the scope of work? And in here, there's 3 bullets, and then the last one is the vote. So we're going to have a video, informational flyers, and public meeting at the end of September. So in September, when everyone can see this. So I didn't know if John or Nick or Allison wanted to go into greater detail with this. There's a mic right there in front of you. And getting used to this room, is there a way to show them in it or zoom in on them, or are they already on it there, Matt?
I'll be talking about the newsletter and everything like that.
Yeah, with the newsletter and everything.
I can go from here. And there was going to be a handout, and I'm not sure that we're going to be able to show that.
Handout is coming.
There you go.
And we'll get a scanned copy to all the board members right after the meeting.
Well, just for an overall look of what we're going to be doing. The first piece of this that we're putting together is the video. The video will be due to Doug and the district on September 9th. It looks like they're going to be doing the drone shots relatively soon, and that drone shots will be of each one of the buildings. And then they're preparing for interviews. I believe it's going to be next week. We still have to get those dates specific.
They're actually the 18th and 19th is what we have on the schedule.
Okay.
August.
Right.
We're interviewing the athletic director, a high school principal, an elementary principal, the superintendent, the board president, teacher, 3 or 4 students, a coach, and a teacher, and the school resource officer.
And then it's expected that video would be you would put it online, and we'll have it for for everybody to take a look at, and they can get an understanding of the project through the video. Also, I would assume that you would use the video too, perhaps at any public meetings that you may have. The newsletter is the next piece that we wanted to talk about, and that was that we've got a first draft pretty much put together. Tracy put it together. That's the one that Doug has been showing. The way that we do this, and I think we talked about this the last time I was at the board meeting. Seems like it was a long time ago. But it's made up of different components. The components would include the scope of the work, the financial pieces. There's frequently asked questions. There's a letter that would start at on the first page that would be signed by perhaps by Doug, by the board president, whoever you want to sign that letter. It would show the rules of voting, where it's going to be, those kinds of things. Each one of those components is then put together into the newsletter. And like I said, we've got a first draft. At this point, there's still quite a bit of work to be done. But we want to get the newsletter to the printer by the 26th of August. They then print it and they send it out. It would be delivered to the district voters by the 14th. It would be in their, the plan would be in their mailbox on the 14th of September. That would give people enough time to take a look at the project, get an understanding of the project, and then they can they can then ask questions at a further meeting, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So that's the schedule for the newsletter. That's the major printed piece that we intend on doing. The last time we talked we were talking about the potential of doing a fact sheet, and that would be a one-page fact sheet, front and back. It would have the same information that would be in the newsletter. It would just be, it wouldn't be all of the newsletter information. It would just be a certain number of components, like the financial component and the scope component, and where you're going to go. I don't think that you're going to need that fact sheet now. Typically, the fact sheet is handed out at any kind of public functions. It would be handed out in the lobbies of each one of the schools, where you might have a board that shows the scope of the work in each one of the schools. Because of COVID, I don't think you're going to be needing that. And I wanted to get your opinion on that today before we go any further. But the newsletter is the major piece, and once we get the newsletter set and the components set for each one of the newsletter for the newsletter, then we can send it out and use those same components if we want to do a fact sheet, and then for the PowerPoint later on too. Is there any idea about the fact sheet? Does it really make sense? Does anybody know of any reason that we should put one together?
All of the information that would be on the fact sheet is going to be in this newsletter, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
I was also thinking, because we have the newsletter, and we could have it in a digital format with a Connect Ed message, which we also put on Facebook, and we also send it out in the district email, that we could say, please remember there's the newsletter, and we can have an attachment where they go to the website and see this newsletter at that time too. So therefore we could repeat, not only would it get to households on the 14th, but we could repeat it multiple times through those methods to the public, so it wouldn't be forgotten.
Actually, I think that fact sheet might be beneficial to post on the district Facebook page and the website, so people can just go and see a one-page summary and then be directed to the newsletter so they can get more detail if they want it?
I would agree with that,
I do
too, and I like the fact that we would be posting it out there as a fact sheet, you know, given, you know, some past history of, you know, not all of the facts, you know, coming out or not having a single source or a place to go to see what the actual facts are.
I agree with that. I'd like to see the fact sheet. That's a great idea.
We could also send it home with children, because, I mean, they will be coming in every other, you know, two groups, so we could send it home with them as a reminder.
I agree. I think that, you know, a newsletter is a time commitment to sit and to read through. And obviously there are a lot of people who want to have that level of detail, but also for people to just refresh their memory on just the key, exactly what we said, a fact sheet. I think that,
Okay.
that can be very beneficial for people.
Okay, will do. Will do.
Thanks.
Are you also doing, we talked about having like placards of like design ideas, especially for the field and maybe the STEM rooms, so that people can see what they're going to look like when they're done. I know that we can't post them and people won't be in lobbies of schools, but we will be having public meetings and we'll be having board meetings, and it might be nice to have just a picture to see what that's going to look like.
We could also use those when construction time comes, of what's going on in a building, to show, so people remember actually what they voted on.
Yep. I think it would help get people excited about it. I mean, it's really going to look great. And, you know, and it's going to be extremely functional and important for the curriculum. And so just to get people excited about it.
I think
that's
the
a great
boards
idea.
that Michelle's talking about could also be used not only just in the school, because people are not going to be coming into the lobbies, but we could have them kind of on a rotation going around the community. They could be in the public library, they could
That's
be
a great idea.
in the 3 different town halls, and we can kind of put a schedule together on where they will be so that people can have access to them and see them. Even if there were a storefront, you know, down at the Alma Plaza that was vacant, right? You know, that could be like a place where they would be able to look in a window and see the items.
The Boys and Girls Club, maybe. That's a great idea. I also think we need to, if we can remind, I think our principals, and I think we all have to think a little bit differently about the opportunities we have to interact with groups. I'm just wondering, you know, if and I don't know the plans, but, you know, if open houses are remote, can there be that be a part of it? Just every opportunity that we can to get that, whether it's digitally or in person, to people, because just, you know, just to remind, I know we all know this as we're discussing it, but just a reminder to everybody that is, you know, watching our meeting, that this is a long process of community input, of working with different groups, working with faculty and staff, and that this is the culmination of it. We have a lot of people in our community who came forward and very involved and supportive of different aspects of the project, and this is the moment where we need everybody to really help us to get that information out to people, especially in these difficult times. So, you know, I think every opportunity for our public and for our, you know, staff to get more information to people, the better. So I think looking for out of the box ways to, like Dave just had a great idea, but to get that information to people so that they feel prepared to vote.
And I don't know how to do this, you know, possibly, sometimes there's like a green screen, and when people are doing virtual lessons and virtual presentations, behind them there would be like sort of like a green screen that would say capital project vote on, and it would be reproduced. So perhaps something like that could be instituted technology-wise. I don't know how that's done. I'm just throwing it out there, and I'm thinking outside the box.
I was also thinking, like, when I have meetings, you know, virtually, there's always a lag before you start it, and if we have that video, that could actually be playing in the background for people as they log in, if there's a way to do that with the Teams and Zoom and different things we'll be using.
That
Don't
would
we
be
have
great.
screens in the school, like when our students were on TV, that we could post the video when the students are coming into school to look at it, of what's going on, the screens?
Yep, yeah, we have different buildings have screens. I know the high school and middle school both have them, so we could have it on those.
It's a great idea too.
It is a good idea.
This way you'll get the students enthused about a goal, we're gonna have something great about coming to school.
And we have student voters.
We do.
We do.
And it really is about the
Another,
students.
another idea might be, and I don't know how soon that would be due or available, the screen. And I don't know whether the town of Elma is still going to go through with their fireworks display, but if we had a giant screen where that could be played, for the people, might be a great opportunity as well.
Well, and the sign in the front of the school, right? I mean, I know we can't play video.
Don't watch a video when you're driving.
Yeah.
No, but a reminder that or even a picture of, a couple of the things that changes daily or something.
I'm just thinking that we identified different community groups as we've talked about moving forward with our strategic planning, that, possibly we could reach out to those community groups and say how, are there ways you can partner with us to get this information to, the people in the community that you see, and here's the information, and how can you help us to share that so that people are informed to make their vote?
And maybe
That's
maybe even some of them would then say, why don't you come to one of the meetings, and I could go and actually talk about it at their meetings.
Right.
That's another one of those places where, if we have that fact sheet, we can have businesses that are, frequently used all throughout the three different towns. If they would, allow fact sheets to be in there, there that people can pick them up.
These are all good ideas. Everybody's wide awake this morning and full of good ideas.
I think we're going to have our meetings at 8:00 every day now.
I know.
And good,
Well, what we'll do, we'll give you the ammunition to use wherever you're going to use it, and it will be the video, it will be the newsletter, it will be fact sheets, and then the boards. Tim, we'll get together a little bit later, maybe on offline, and see how we might be able to get a few boards and which ones we can put together so that you can use those too. There's one other piece of this whole puzzle too. Put together a PowerPoint. Typically, it would be for Doug to use on any kind of community meeting. Doug, you talked about a board meeting, I believe on the 23rd, is it?
26? 26, so
September
September 26th, or August 26th. But what's the
September
September?
23rd.
September 23rd.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's the
September
board. Well, at that board meeting, you should have something to talk to, and we can help you put that together too. And again, it's all utilizing the same components that we use in the newsletter, so that we don't have information that goes out that's, as we talked about before. You don't want to have something said in one piece and then something different for whatever reason said in another piece. So it's all consistent messaging, and it goes throughout everything that you're going to be putting out to the district. So that will be ready by, we're thinking that would be ready by the middle of next month, by the 15th, and that'll give enough time to get that out to the community too. By the way, all of this information would then go to a central spot on the website. Whatever we have should be on a specific on the website for capital project that people can go to and get it all in one fell swoop.
Can I just ask about that you mean the middle of September? the September 15th. I'm just thinking that if Doug reaches out to community groups that wants to be seeing community groups, there's not much time between September 15th and the vote. So I feel like, I feel like that's a little bit,
Late?
yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if everybody agrees. I just think our goal is to flood, I think, the community with multiple ways to access the information that they need to vote. And I don't think that if that message is consistent, which is, critical, but that I don't think that anybody's going to feel like they had too much information.
That's fine, Sharon.
Okay.
We can get that. The only reason why we said the 15th was because of the 23rd board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to be using it for other reasons earlier than that, we can get it out earlier.
Okay.
Like I said, it's the same information
Right.
put together for the newsletter, so it'll all fit together like that.
Okay.
Would it be possible to have it ready for the August 26th board meeting?
Well, it's,
Seems like it should be because you're saying, you had said that the newsletter would go to the printer on August 26th.
right.
So I would think that would mean that just because it goes to the printer, we could start using the newsletter prior to it being at the printer, then the information isn't going to change.
Yeah, and Tracy, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but if we're getting the information to the printer on the 26th, putting together a PowerPoint, I guess we could. It depends, Doug, on how much information that you'll have in addition to the components that we're talking about, and on how much you're going to be talking about other things and what you may want to be discussing. So, I mean, I guess we could do it, right, Tracy?
It's doable. The newsletter probably would not be available, I mean, maybe a few days before the 26th if we really get all of our, edits done and finalized, but we're looking at the 26th for the final draft that then we turn over to the printer. But that day, you'd be able to put that newsletter out into the public online, use it that way. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And we can
But if the visual pieces of the PowerPoint are the newsletter, then Doug can have your talking points to go. I mean, you don't have to read a PowerPoint. It could be, I think it's having that in your hands in a portable way, I think is the important part. Right, Doug? I don't want to speak for you, but I'm just assuming that would be what people see, and then you can go off script. Don't do that.
I think the message is consistent, so I'm going to try to stay on script for this one.
Good, okay.
Even just
Read the
having
newsletter.
the fact sheet by that meeting, and then the in-depth newsletter would go to print and then be sent out, but just to get people, still, again, like talking about the project and the big talking points.
Right.
Would be nice to.
And I think the reason we need it sooner rather than later is that because of COVID, because people aren't in those multiple places of contact with each other and discussing it at sports events and in the same way that they normally are, that's why we need these multiple things, and the sooner the better. Because it's the information is done, so it's just the sharing. So,
Well, the one-page fact sheet is going to be a whole lot easier to print, because you can basically use a copier. I mean, that's easier than the newsletter. So it's just a matter of basically Tracy laying it out and laying out the information that you want to put onto that one pager. So I think that might be able to be done too. And Tracy, I am now talking for you.
And I want to get Gunnar in here too, because you can't really see him, but I think he's had a comment.
Yeah,
Like my notes here.
I have a few things. First off, I think it's really essential that we have one central location on the website. So I'm glad to hear that's going to happen, because I think that's worked really well with getting information to families about COVID. They know exactly where to find the information, and that it's going to be factual when they go there. So I think that's really essential. The second thing that I think is I know we're all really excited about the capital project, and I just think we need to be really cognizant about how much information we're blasting to families in the community at certain times. And if we're talking about that late August date, that's going to be times where families are going to be really considering this reopening plan and what they're doing with sending children back to school. So I think we need to be aware of what we're pushing out when to people. And so having a central location on the website for people to find information will be critical. The other thing that I think is really, really important for people to know, and I'm sure that this will be addressed in the frequently asked question part, but is how people are going to vote. I know that the absentee ballot situation is still in effect, I believe, for the COVID-19, but making sure that that's addressed and that people have enough time to request the absentee ballot, they know where they have to request that ballot, and that they have enough time to fill out the ballot and either mail it back or drop it off, and all of that really needs to be addressed and publicized so people know how to vote. And then secondly, I think it's really important for families who, once again, are considering sending their children back to school to know that if the public is coming in to vote physically, that the public won't have contact with where their children will be located, that there's going to be specific areas that are going to be designated for voting. And I think all of that really needs to be addressed on top of getting the information about the project out.
Yeah, I think those are great points, because that's one thing I know we were already discussing of, in looking and talking to the lawyers and looking at the primaries, that individuals will be able to request the absentee ballots for reasons that they're not comfortable because of COVID. But then there'll be other people who wish to exercise their rights about what door they would be entering, how we segregate that, how we have physical barriers, so there would be no interaction between the two. And then the other part we're starting to talk about is how we would continually disinfect during the day. So as people come in, the people who are following them, there's been disinfection before they came in.
Just on an offshoot note, I was just wondering if we are making any progress or at all thinking about an app. So many people have them on their phones nowadays instead of having to go through the routine and going to the website. If we had an app.
Right now, we haven't been exploring apps too much, just with the starting of COVID and everything else going on, the strategic plan and the capital project. But that is definitely something in the back of our minds always.
Good idea.
What I was thinking is that maybe it could even be a technology classroom project. For instance, my nephew is a super whiz at that kind of stuff, and he did an internship right at where I work, and he created an app for the whole county. How do you like that? On an internship. My niece did the same thing at the Pentagon. She worked 8 weeks at the Pentagon. She set up apps for every single one of them in eight weeks, every division.
I wrote that down so I can present it to the high school principal. Probably Mary Jo wrote it too.
Great, do we have other discussion, or is it time to vote? No, I don't want to stop anybody discussing, I just want to make sure
Well, we still have one more slide I'd like to get to.
Oh, okay. We can't see the slide.
Excuse me, that's okay. Turn the page, we're going to the financial plan, and the financial
Okay.
plan, what you see here is state aid. And that's where we really don't like the way the proposition has to write it. That comes from lawyers of saying it comes from taxes, because what it is this is the total cost of the project, and that $12 million is money that comes back to us from the state in terms of the, basically 70%. The rest is a capital reserve, and where it says other available district funds, that is the funding that we would put in the capital reserve, but it's not in there yet, and so we just want to be very clear on that, and that gives us a total of the 19, we'll say $0.1 million. What we did at the last meeting at the district planning conference, we actually looked at some of those percentages at the end for contingencies, and we redid those, and that really changed it from where it was a 19.5 down to this 19.2. which really was a decrease of just about $320,000. So I wanted to point that out because I knew there were some questions from some members of the board about air conditioning that we're going to do in-house, about could there be added funds for STEM rooms and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure you had time to discuss that if you would like.
So can you explain that? So from our district planning meeting,
Correct.
this number is $300,000 less.
Yeah, approximately is, rounding, because when we looked at it, and I didn't bring that sheet with me, but I do have the numbers, and maybe you guys could help me. Go ahead, Nick, do you have that? Nick has it.
So what happened was, the reason for the decrease is based on the percentage of the construction contingency. By reducing the construction contingency from 7% to 5%, also then reduced part of the incidental budget. Therefore, it was $328,751 less for the overall referendum value, just by decreasing the construction contingency.
Okay, and that's what we agreed on in the January meeting that we had.
Correct. Yep, that's what we agreed on in the January meeting. And so we're right at those numbers. And the only reason I pointed out is because we want this to have no tax impact. And when it was presented that we could do a $19.5 million project with no tax impact with the numbers we have up there.
So I actually have one more question about the percentages. Just to talk about that, the escalation percentage that we talked about in January is less than the 10% that's in the proposal. And I think the explanation we talked about was that because of the increases in materials and supplies and construction costs, that we wanted to anticipate that.
Yep, you absolutely have that correct. With COVID coming into play from so it was in January we had that meeting, we said, I'll say 7% or something we thought was good. And since then, in March, COVID hit, and with that, I'm sure if people have gone to Home Depot and different things, you can just see consumer-wise the cost escalation that's gone up, some of it driven by manufacturing and the supply. So that's why it is at 10% right now. That's the recommendation, from the experts because of what's going on with COVID. If the prices do come back down, that would be funds that we could use with no tax impact for other construction items that we thought were prudent to do at this time.
So in January, we had agreed on 6, so there is an extra 4% in there. I mean, not extra, it's not extra.
Yeah. The extra is the one that made me pause.
Yeah, sorry.
Hopefully, I would like to say I'm hoping all of the construction contingency is extra.
Right.
Because I'm hoping we nailed every price exactly right, but that has to do with when the bidding comes in. Nick, did you want to add to this?
So we as a company, we watch the trends across the state as well as all of the projects that we're currently bidding. And we found that 5% per year for escalation is a fair percentage to carry based on the escalation of materials, labor, everything else in the marketplace. So that's how the 10% is derived for escalation.
Thank you. So the question you're asking us is, do we want to leave it at the 19.2 or go to 19.5 still with no tax impact?
Yeah, because, I think that's a fair question because we always want to take care of the safety, we want to take care of the students, and we want to provide as many opportunities and structurally as we can, but we also have to be cognizant of the taxpayers and what they have to carry. So at the 19.5, there would still be no tax impact, but there would be an additional $300,000 that could be used towards STEM. And I think another individual talked about making sure we didn't do or not making sure, but putting in the project air conditioning at Alma rather than doing it in-house.
I think we should. as long as there's no tax impact, which is something that we've said from the start. I think numbers have changed a lot since January, and I understand why we were being really careful with the contingencies, but I think in this world of unknown right now, I think it's better to be safe than sorry in the long run. And so I would support increasing that construction contingency back to where it was when it was presented to us at the district planning conference. Especially when the experts in the room who have been dealing with this are encouraging for that contingency to be in place.
And I wouldn't say it'd be back to the same percentage. I would say we'd put the 320 in it, because that takes us right back to the 19, I think you said 321,000?
It was 328,751.
328,000.
So going back to report number 3 that you all had as a handout, it would have been 19,518,000 even.
So I would just, what I did for math is I just made it 320, so I would have new numbers, because we'd have to modify the proposition. So instead of the 19.189249, adding in 320 would take us up to 19,509,249. And then in the other part where we have the 12.968, that would take us up to 13,288,000.
I would support that as long as we have an idea of where that money is targeted. So there was a big change in the direction of the STEM rooms in the high school. And I think that we need to be cognizant of the fact that this project isn't even going to be completed for 3 years. So we need to be forward thinking and looking, and technology is changing so rapidly. If we're going to stay current, especially with our high school students, I'd like to see that money earmarked for what you and Mary Jo and Dean feel is best for the curriculum in the high school.
Yeah,
I agree, because when we originally had looked at our, I don't want to say wish list, everything we could possibly do, there were, many items in there, and we have went through that exhaustive process to balance things. And when we allocated money for the high school specifically in their STEM area, we kind of cut things out of it to get to that dollar amount. It's fantastic that dollar amount came in. There were some things we thought we needed that we didn't, and that came in lower, but I don't think that means that we want to invest less in that area, because I think that provides that academic focus, because all along we have continually tried to balance the different areas, safety, academics, and all areas, to make sure we're addressing things. So I would like to see it continue to be allocated to the next step in that, whatever our teachers and administrators feel is the next step in that, in the vision, especially as we're entering that strategic planning phase.
So what we could make it for, and there's 2 ways we can do this, and I would say, once the vote is put out to the public and they support it, we could decide which is the best, where we could either do it as an alt to the first initial billing, or we could do it as change orders after we get into the project, because then we'd have the first round of bidding. We would know where we are. Iroquois prides itself on working very well, and I got to give a lot of credit to Dave Carlin with this, and Tim and Campus from their previous projects, working very well with builders. So therefore, they give us typically very I won't say favorable, very fair bidding, and so therefore we tend to have some money where we can do, a further projects or further little scope. And so what we could do is make it a targeted for, I would say what I'd want to target it for would be first doing probably an alt bid for the pricing of the air conditioning at Elma. And the reason I say that is because we know we can do it in-house. It's a unique space. So as long as the pricing came in and, Dave looked at it and said, yep, that would be favorable compared to what he could do. And then the rest of it, the second earmarking would be for the instructional STEM in the high schools. And we'll have a new instructor in there actually at that time, just based on what happened today at this board meeting. And therefore Dean can work with that individual about what they see moving forward for that space in that room. Does that sound like, the first two priorities in earmarking stuff for?
What was the estimate on the air conditioning for Alma?
I don't think there was one in it, but the other buildings were right around $100,000. I think 100 was the high and the low was 60. I see Allison and Nick going through the pages really quick to see how close I am with my memory. Allison's nodding her head, so I'll go with hers, yes.
Very close, Doug.
Very close, Nick said.
I mean, I think that the administrators and teachers will make the right decision for their building.
Yep. Yeah, and that's exactly who we'd go to and talk to them with that one.
And then with the strategic plan, we are going to bring people in to talk about goals and direction, and so the public will have input. And,
yep. And that's where we can have further discussions, because after the strategic plan, the building administrators might reevaluate, and therefore it's not locked in, but these are current targets based on today and what we're saying today.
Sounds good to me.
Sorry, one more point that I'm guessing is in Chuck's mind is that this is bringing taxpayer dollars back to our district that we've already paid. So if we can increase the state aid, that's not a bad thing.
That's actually a great point, because that's the part that would change. It would be increasing the amount of state aid coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking toward the future. Do we have a future plan at adding conditioning to other rooms in each school as a future plan, like a 5-year plan, like library, that kind of stuff?
That would be something that we're talking about in the strategic plan, how far we would want to go with that. We currently do have the middle school library that's air conditioned, but that's the only one. But I really think with the way the environment is changing and concerns parents have brought forward, that is going to be definitely something we're going to have to look at.
Okay, so that would be a nice, I know when I was out at Alma, that was the only thing they really said they wanted was air conditioning and more of it. Because it was really, when I went for the meeting, it was excruciatingly hot. We were in the library and it was pretty uncomfortable.
Right, and that's why we thought we'd start with the cafeterias, because everyone gets to experience it, and then there's time during the day where people could go in there and then sign it out when the cafeteria is not used for eating, that they could have other additional breaks for rooms.
Thank you.
Yep. So I'm hearing everyone's comfortable with that. I mean, I know not everyone's spoke, but I saw heads nodding in that, and I don't want to speak for anyone. So is there anyone that wishes something else to say? If not, we can make those modifications in the resolution, and then that's all I would have to move forward then with voting on it.
Is there anybody else who wants to say anything in our discussion? Because I can't see everybody that's actually physically there, or anybody else.
Sharon, I need a motion to amend the resolution.
Yeah, we'll need I'm gonna give Cindy the mic.
Okay.
Gunner's doing it.
Is there anyone else wishing to discuss the proposition? Okay, Sharon, I would like to make a motion to amend proposition number 4.9, so that the total cost of the project is $19,509,249. And that the project, that the tax is hereby voted to finance the balance of the estimated maximum cost of the project, an amount not to exceed $13,288,000.
I second.
Do we need to vote on that amendment separately?
Yes,
Or, okay, so
yes.
all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Did you get a second for that motion? Yeah, all right. Sorry, just double check.
yeah. Okay, and now we need to vote on the whole item 4.9, correct?
Correct.
So,
Is there anybody who else who wanted to add anything before we moved into that voting?
We already had a motion and a second on the resolution.
Yep, yep. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you, and we'll get working on the PowerPoint, the fact sheet, the flyer, and the video. Congratulations, and looking forward to watching you get interviewed, Sharon.
And the cards, the placard cards, right?
Oh,
Oh, and the placard cards, yep,
Yep.
sorry, I have too many notes here, so I missed that one. You're right, it's there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Item 5, do we need to go into executive session?
Nope, nothing.
Nope. Okay. Do we need to vote on that then?
No.
No. Okay. All right, and in a minute, we're going to adjourn the meeting. This is not on our agenda. I just want to give a little bit of a shout out. There's no board discussion, but just to everybody that's working so hard, at all the administrators, the teachers, the staff, the transportation team, buildings and grounds, everybody to working on our reentry plan. I just thank you for all the hard work. And with that, I would like a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second, Louise.
Discussion.
I do have one point, sorry, everybody, really
Okay.
quick.
Gunnar does have a discussion.
All right.
Chuck's dream is coming true, sorry.
Go for it, Gunnar.
I apologize, Chuck. Just really quick, I know we talked about at the district planning conference, the agenda meetings, and I was hoping that, I know Cindy put out an email, so I was hoping that the committee could come to a conclusion on when we would like to have that first meeting date for the agenda meeting, committee meetings.
Okay, so if we're on that committee, we will all check our email and get back to
Yep.
Cindy?
Yep,
As
yeah, if
quickly
you
as
could get back
possible.
to Cindy. Cindy, would you mind just putting out, resending that email? So if you're on that committee, you should get a new email today just as a reminder, so you don't have to dig deep in your emails for it.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Gunnar.
Looking forward to hearing what you guys come up with.
Me too. Okay, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so we will adjourn our meeting. Thank you,
and
everybody.
thank you to the public that
Thank you.
attended virtually.
Everyone.
Thanks, John.
And thank you, everyone,
Have a
for
great day,
attending.
everybody.